Why are you still alone? Why does love seem to knock on every door, except yours? You've watched others meet, connect, fall in love, while you sit in silence, wondering if heaven even hears your cries. You've prayed with tears. You've waited with faith. But the longer the silence lasts, the louder your doubts become. Is something wrong with you? Has God forgotten you? Or worse? Is this loneliness your forever? Let me tell you right now, no. This is not rejection. This is not abandonment. This is refinement. This message is not for just anyone. It's for the chosen ones. Those who were never meant to live ordinary love stories. Because their souls were never built for ordinary connections. If your heart has felt heavy with waiting, if your spirit has screamed in the dark while your mouth stayed silent, then this is your confirmation. God is not ignoring you. He's preparing something sacred through you. Because singleness, true, divine singleness, is not a pause. It's a process. A fire, a hidden training ground where only the strongest are called to become the holiest. And the reason it hurts so much? Because heaven is building something weighty, and glory never comes cheap. In this video, we're going deep, deeper than advice, deeper than cliches. We're about to uncover the 5 invisible trials God uses to prepare souls that are too powerful for casual love and too sacred for what's popular. If you've ever whispered, "Why am I still alone?" you're about to find out. But before we go any further, if this message is already stirring something in you, like this video to confirm your spirit is awake. Subscribe if you haven't, because your journey is not over. It's just beginning. And drop 99 in the comments. Why 99? Because heaven left the 99 to pursue the one. And sometimes, that one is you. Now, let's reveal what your loneliness has really been hiding. There's a kind of loneliness that goes deeper than just being single. It's not about the absence of a partner. It's about the absence of visibility. It's when you show up in rooms and no one sees you, when you try to connect, but every door feels closed, when you cry out to God, and all you get is silence wrapped in more silence. You feel invisible, not just to people, but to opportunities, to conversations that could change everything, to relationships that could carry destiny, even to the very answers from heaven that you've begged for in prayer. And that's the part no one talks about. The spiritual numbness of being hidden. Not because you did something wrong, but because heaven chose to cloak you for a reason that your mind can't yet comprehend. Let me speak something raw and real into your spirit. Being hidden by God is not rejection. It's protection in its highest form. Because you see, everyone wants to be seen, but not everyone is ready to be revealed. There's a difference between being noticed and being unleashed. God doesn't just expose you to the world. He unfolds you. And if you feel like life has left you on the sidelines, it's because heaven has strategically placed you there. Why? Because you are carrying something too rare to be rushed, too holy to be touched by the wrong hands, too weighty to be handled by people who are still driven by surface-level attraction. So while you've been questioning why no one chooses you, heaven has been guarding your value like treasure buried beneath layers of process. And here's where the mystery turns into revelation. God hides what he intends to elevate. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he became the voice that confronted Pharaoh. David was left in the fields before he was called to the throne. And Jesus, Son of God, spent 30 hidden years before walking into his 3-year ministry that would change eternity. You want to be seen? Then be ready to be misunderstood, criticized, idolized, and attacked. Because the moment you're revealed, everything you carry becomes a target. And God, in his mercy, says, "Not yet. You're too precious. I'm still building you in the dark." There's a reason you're not going viral. There's a reason your DMs are empty. There's a reason your name isn't on their lips. Because God is keeping you unavailable to the wrong people, so He can make you undeniable to the right one. Listen closely. The delay is not a punishment. It's a divine pause, so you're not discovered by those who only see the glitter, but not the gold beneath your silence. So you're not mistaken for someone who can be loved casually, when your very soul was designed to be encountered prophetically. That emptiness, that ache to be noticed, that frustration every time another person finds the one while you're left clapping on the sidelines, it's not meant to break you. It's meant to remind you, you are not common, and you're not behind. You're just being preserved. Because what's coming into your life isn't quick, it's consecrated. Let me tell you this, when God finally reveals you, it won't be in pieces. It will be whole, holy, healed, ready. And the one who's meant for you won't see you as an option. They'll recognize you as a divine appointment. But before that moment arrives, you have to embrace the shadows. Not because you're being punished, but because God knows the kind of light you carry could blind the unprepared. And that's why He's hiding you. Because your light isn't average. It's sacred. So the next time you feel invisible, remember this. Sometimes God hides you not so you won't be seen, but so you can finally see yourself without needing anyone else's eyes to validate you. And that is where everything begins. Because before God reveals you to the world, He restores you within. Now, you've made it through the first trial. But what comes next? It's a test that breaks many chosen ones, and few even know they're taking it. What is it? Stay with me. You're about to find out. There comes a moment in every chosen one's journey when something deep within them shifts. Almost overnight, the things you used to chase lose their shine. You scroll through social media, and what once looked attractive now feels empty. Conversations that used to excite you now drain you. Flirtation without foundation now feels like noise to your spirit. And suddenly, you're left with this quiet realization. You no longer settle. Not because you're cold, not because you're picky, but because your soul is waking up to something eternal. You're beginning to recognize that what the world calls love is often just performance, shiny on the outside, but hollow within. And you weren't made for hollow. You were made for holy. This is what most people miss. God isn't just keeping others from you. He's transforming your desires. He's reshaping your taste. He's elevating your discernment. Because when you carry a prophetic mission, you can't afford to partner with someone whose vision stops at comfort, aesthetics, or shallow affection. What you're carrying demands alignment, not attention. That's why the ones who used to check all the boxes suddenly feel like spiritual interference. That's why someone can be kind, attractive, even godly, and yet your spirit says no. Because in this season, God is not matching you by the flesh, He's matching you by the mantle. You're being trained to detect what your eyes can't see: assignment, depth, spirit, calling. That's why your soul is rejecting anything that feels like a distraction, no matter how well packaged it looks. And yes, it's lonely. It's confusing. You might wonder if your standards are too high, or if maybe you're sabotaging your own happiness. But here's the truth. You're not sabotaging anything. You're safeguarding your destiny. Because sacred connections can't be rushed. And kingdom love is not found. It's revealed. Let me say that again. Real love, heaven-aligned love, is not discovered by swiping, chasing, or compromising. It's revealed in the fullness of time, when your heart is mature enough to recognize it, and your standards are strong enough to protect it. This is the test of sacred standards. Can you hold the line when the world tells you to lower it? Can you choose solitude over settling? Can you walk away from almost so God can trust you with authentic? Because hear this, many are called, but few are willing to wait for a connection that carries eternal weight. This trial is not about being better than others. It's about being set apart for something they can't see. You can't be unequally yoked if your life is tied to prophetic impact. You can't be spiritually lazy if your marriage is meant to birth generational breakthroughs. You can't chase popularity when your relationship is meant to be a partnership in purpose. That's why others are rushing. But you're being refined. While they're dating for dopamine, you're being purified to discern between chemistry and covenant. Because chemistry can spark in a moment, but covenant survives every storm. Chemistry feels good, but covenant does good. For God's kingdom, for your legacy, and for your soul. That's the difference. And that's why it's taking time. The person God is preparing for you isn't just attractive. They're anointed. They're assigned. They'll see you not as an accessory, but as a spiritual force. They won't just compliment you. They'll cover you. They won't just entertain your emotions. They'll ignite your calling. But before you meet them, you must become the version of yourself that can hold that level of glory without sabotaging it. So yes, God is letting others pass you by. Yes, He's keeping you from flings, situationships, and false flames. Because He's more concerned with your wholeness than your timeline. And when you're tempted to question Him, remember this: He's not withholding love from you. He's protecting you from everything that looks like love, but leads to spiritual delay. You don't need a placeholder. You need a partner in destiny. And when they come, you'll be glad you didn't settle for someone who only awakened your feelings, but couldn't handle your fire. Now, you've passed the second trial. But don't relax yet. The next one? It's deeper than loneliness. It's the one that feels the most personal, because it isolates you not just physically, but spiritually. And if you don't recognize it in time, it could make you believe you've been abandoned by God Himself. But you haven't. Stay close. This next trial reveals the true weight of your anointing. There is a silence that screams louder than any crowd. It creeps in when the world goes quiet. When the messages stop, the phone doesn't ring, and even your own voice echoes back at you like a stranger. Loneliness doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like scrolling past smiling faces, while something inside you whispers, "I'm not like them. I'm not in that season. I don't belong anywhere right now." But let me say this with holy authority: you are not lost. You are being located by heaven. You see, loneliness hits hardest at night. Not because you're weak, but because you were built to feel deeply, to discern what most people drown in distractions, to carry emotions that the average soul would label too much, when in truth, they are your divine sensors. And so, in this sacred but painful season, God begins to strip it all away. The noise, the validation, the attention, the people who never really saw you anyway. Why? Because God will remove what feeds your ego in order to awaken what strengthens your spirit. This is the test of isolation, and it's one of the most misunderstood trials of all. You think no one's reaching out, but it's God who's pulling you in. You think you've been abandoned, but really, you're being handpicked for transformation. Because what you learn in isolation, you'll never learn in connection. What you hear in solitude, you'll never hear through applause. You want to know why it hurts so much? Because you've been conditioned to believe that love is proven through presence. But God is teaching you that presence is found through absence. That when people disappear, you find out who you are, not by who embraces you, but by who remains within you when no one else does. This is where your true identity is forged, not in the arms of a lover, not in the compliments of a crowd, but in the wilderness of self, where God Himself becomes your anchor. He removes every voice so you can finally recognize His. Because here's the danger. If you don't learn who you are alone, you will hand your identity to whoever gives you attention. And that, chosen one, is how you end up in relationships that fill your loneliness but empty your destiny. So God isolates you. He puts you in a season where nothing fits, where you feel unseen, unwanted, uninvited. But you're not being rejected. You're being recalibrated. Your spirit is being rewired to hear what can't be heard in the crowd, to desire what doesn't come fast, to build intimacy with God first, so you don't treat a person like your savior later. This is training. This is the gym of the soul. And every tear you've cried in silence, He's counted it. Every night you curled up in bed wondering what's wrong with you, He was closer than your breath, not watching from a distance, but speaking in the stillness. You are mine. Before you belong to anyone else, you belong to me. Because before God gives you someone to love, He gives you clarity about who you are without them. And when you're clear on your identity, you no longer attract people based on your wounds. You attract people based on your worth. Let's be real. Most people rush into relationships to escape themselves. But you, chosen one, are being called to do the opposite, to face yourself, to sit in the silence until the silence becomes a symphony, to walk through the valley until the shadows no longer scare you. Because one day, someone will come into your life, and if you haven't done the work in isolation, you'll bleed expectations onto them that they were never meant to carry. But if you pass this test, you'll enter that relationship whole, not needing them to complete you, but ready to build something with them. Not expecting them to heal your brokenness, but inviting them into a story of already started healing. This trial will not last forever, but what it produces in you will. Let that sink in. Your loneliness has an expiration date, but your wholeness will echo into eternity. So the next time isolation feels unbearable, remember this: God is not preparing you for just any love. He's preparing you for a glory-filled union that reflects heaven on earth. And that kind of love requires a version of you that can only be born in the furnace of solitude. But now comes the twist. Because just when you start to get used to the silence, just when you start to feel stronger in your singleness, God introduces a test that goes deeper than time, deeper than loneliness, deeper than feelings. It's the trial that reveals whether you truly trust heaven's pace, or if you're still secretly afraid of being forgotten. The next test? It doesn't just confront your patience, it exposes your faith, and very few pass it. Will you? It's been years, not months, not a season, years. Years of prayers whispered in the dark, years of questions that never got answered, years of watching others find love, lose it, find it again, while your timeline remains painfully blank. You've seen friends walk down the aisle, you've held their babies, you've celebrated engagements with a smile. But behind that smile lives a quiet ache, not bitterness, not jealousy, just that gnawing question that never seems to go away. When is it my turn? And maybe you've made peace with singleness, at least externally. Maybe you've mastered the art of distraction, keeping yourself busy, productive, focused. But deep down, there's a longing that refuses to die. A hope that keeps rising, even when logic says it should have flatlined by now. This is the test of time. And it doesn't just stretch your patience, it stretches your faith. Because time has a way of either building your trust in God or eroding it, one unanswered prayer at a time. And the longer you wait, the louder the lies become. Maybe it's just not meant for you. Maybe you missed your chance. Maybe you're too much, or not enough. Maybe God just forgot. But listen to me. He didn't forget. He's not late. He's not ignoring you. He's orchestrating something that will not just satisfy your heart, but elevate your calling. Because here's what most people won't tell you. God doesn't release what's sacred into what's premature. If it hasn't come yet, it's not because it's denied. It's because it's not ready. Or maybe you're not ready. Not in the way you think, not in your job or your looks or your checklist, but in the hidden places of your soul that He still wants to heal, align, strengthen, mature. Because when you wait on God, you don't get something average. You don't get what the world settles for. You don't get a person who only loves your image. You get someone who sees your calling and knows how to honor it. Someone who won't just say the right things, but carry the weight of covenant when things get heavy. Someone who understands that your union isn't about romance only. It's about kingdom advancement. And that kind of person can't be microwaved. That kind of love has to marinate in time. That's why the delay feels so painful, because you're not waiting for something normal. You're waiting for something anointed. But here's the part that's hard to swallow. The right person at the wrong time becomes the wrong person. Read that again. Let it pierce through the impatience. Because if God gave it to you now, while you're still clinging to old fears, while you're still secretly idolizing love, while you still believe someone else will complete you, you'd fumble the very thing you were called to steward. And God loves you too much to let that happen. He knows what's coming is too valuable to be mishandled, too prophetic to be rushed, too heavy to be placed in immature hands, yours or theirs. So instead of rushing it, He stretches time. He stretches you, not to torture you, but to prepare your capacity. Because love isn't just about connection. It's about consecration. And no one tells you that holy love requires holy timing. You want someone who prays? Then you have to become someone who prays without ceasing. You want someone who walks in purpose? Then you have to let God finish shaping yours. You want someone who's healed? Then let your healing go all the way to the root. This wait, it's not passive, it's prophetic. God is not just having you wait for something, He's having you wait into something, into a version of yourself you'll need when the blessing arrives, into a depth of spiritual authority you'll need when warfare comes against your union, into a level of clarity that ensures you recognize what's real, instead of falling for a counterfeit out of exhaustion. So no, your waiting is not wasted. Every lonely night, every unanswered message, every time you thought, maybe this is it, only to be met with silence, it's all been part of the divine timeline. And when it finally happens, when heaven gives you the green light, and that person enters your life with alignment, peace, and clarity, you'll look back and realize it didn't come late. It came exactly on time. Because what's coming won't just make you happy, it will make you whole. And wholeness always takes time. Now, breathe. You've endured the waiting. You've walked through the silence. But the next trial, it goes beyond the calendar. It touches your very trust in who God is. Because there's a kind of test that asks, will you still believe, even when nothing changes? And that trial may be the final gate before the promise arrives. What do you do when the silence is louder than your prayers? When the waiting turns from days into years, and even hope starts to feel like a heavy burden? When nothing makes sense anymore, and the voice of God seems to have vanished into the very void you begged Him to fill? This is the point where many give up. Not because they stopped believing in love, but because they started to believe they were forgotten, invisible, discarded. But what they didn't realize is that they had just entered the final and most sacred trial, the test of trust. You see, God doesn't test you with absence to torture you. He tests you with silence to reveal your foundation. Because anyone can believe when things are moving. Anyone can praise when the blessing arrives. Anyone can smile when love is knocking on the door. But the real question is this: will you still worship when you're empty? Will you still serve when you're lonely? Will you still believe when you're broken? This is not about how much faith you have for a relationship. It's about how deep your loyalty to God runs, when the only thing He's giving you right now is Himself. And for many, that's not enough. But for the chosen ones, that becomes the moment they are transformed, not through answered prayers, but through unwavering surrender. Because before God sends someone to love you well, He wants to make sure you've learned how to love Him first, with nothing in return, no conditions, no bargains, just a heart that says, even if I never get what I asked for, I will not stop trusting you. That is holy ground. Because if your trust in God depends on His performance, you'll always walk in spiritual instability. But if your trust is built on who He is, even when your world is falling apart, you become unshakable. And here's the mystery. The more you surrender the need to be fulfilled by people, the more heaven begins to prepare someone worthy of your wholeness. But it starts with this brutal yet beautiful question. Can your heart be full in God, even when your arms are still empty? Because if you enter a relationship hoping to be healed, you'll bleed onto the very person who came to love you. If you're still secretly broken, you'll idolize their attention. You'll expect them to do what only God was meant to do, make you feel complete. And that's not love. That's dependence. And dependency masquerading as love always ends in destruction. That's why God isolates. That's why He delays. That's why He allows you to walk through this final fire. Not because He's cruel, but because He's building something eternal. This is your season of heart alignment, where your identity, your joy, your stability, your vision must all be anchored in Christ, so that when someone finally walks into your life, they don't meet a fractured soul. They meet a flame that's already burning. And here's the truth no one likes to hear. God will intentionally delay the blessing until your need for it dies, not because He doesn't want to give it to you, but because He wants to give it to a version of you who won't trade Him for it once it arrives. That's what this trial is exposing. It's not just about trust. It's about priority. Who comes first? Who sits on the throne of your heart? Who gets your loyalty when life doesn't go your way? God is watching, not with judgment, but with expectation. Because if you can walk through this fire and still say, God, I trust you, then He knows you're not just ready to receive love, you're ready to carry it, protect it, honor it, and multiply it into something that advances heaven, not just comforts you. So don't rush this moment. Don't try to skip this stage. It may feel like the most painful part, but it's also the most defining. Because once you pass this test, something shifts in the spirit. The heavens begin to open, the preparation accelerates, and what felt like a delay turns into a divine release. But you're not there yet. You're standing at the threshold. And what you choose now, to trust or to doubt, will determine whether you walk into glory or loop back into another cycle. The silence isn't absence, it's strategy. And if you listen carefully, you'll realize God never stopped speaking. He just changed the language, from words to trust. Now you've made it through the final trial. You've walked through hiddenness, separation, stretching, silence, surrender. But this is not the end, because everything you've been through has been setting the stage for something prophetic. In just a moment, you're going to see why none of it was in vain. What comes next will awaken something you thought had died. But first, you need to hear what it all meant. Chosen one, take a deep breath. Not because the storm is over, but because you're not the same person who walked into it. You've been stretched. You've been hidden. You've been tested in places no one else could see. And still, you've remained. This isn't weakness. This is warrior formation. This isn't delay. This is destiny alignment. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're not unloved. You are in divine formation. Heaven is not preparing you for what's easy. Heaven is preparing you for what's eternal. Because what's coming is not just a relationship. It's a revelation. It won't just make you feel loved. It will make you realize why God kept you for so long. Your love story won't be rushed. It won't be microwaved. It won't be built on convenience or compromise. It will be holy, anointed, undeniably supernatural. And that's why the weight has felt like fire, because it is fire, refining you, purifying you, breaking everything in you that would have sabotaged what's sacred. But hear me now, this is not punishment, it's promotion in disguise. What others got quickly, you're getting in glory. What others built with emotion, you're building in revelation. And what others had to recover from, you'll walk into with peace, purpose, and prophetic clarity. So stay faithful, stay pure, stay expectant, because what God is crafting for you, no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no heart has imagined. It's coming. And when it does, you'll understand why every no, every silence, every tear was actually heaven saying, "Wait, I'm not done writing." So drop this in the comments as your declaration. I'm in process, but I'm not alone. Say it boldly. Say it like a prophecy. Say it until your spirit believes it. And if this message echoed in your soul, share this video, not just to inspire someone, but to mark this moment. The moment you realized you were never waiting in vain. You were being shaped in fire to carry something eternal. Your love is not late. It's being refined. And when it arrives, it will feel like prophecy fulfilled. It will sound like destiny confirmed. It will look like heaven touched earth. And you'll be ready, because you didn't settle, you didn't give up, you trusted. And now, glory is on its way. Let them know. Let the heavens hear it. Let hell regret ever trying. The chosen one stayed faithful, and now, it's harvest time.